It began like thunder in the distance, but it wasn't a storm. At 2:17 a.m., the quiet sky above Bryansk suddenly came alive. A bright flash tore through the darkness, followed by a roar that rolled across the sleeping town. Windows shattered. Dogs barked in panic. And for a moment, people thought it was an earthquake. But what they saw next told a different story. Flames, not from a lightning strike, but from a military complex. A Russian ammunition and oil plant, burning like a torch in the night. No sirens had warned of incoming danger. No air defense lit the sky. The first sign of the attack was the explosion itself. And by morning, word had spread. Ukraine had struck again, this time deep inside Russian territory, nearly 500 miles from the nearest front line. It wasn't just an attack. It was a message that distance no longer means safety, and that the war had reached a place once thought untouchable. No one could say how Ukraine pulled it off. A long-range drone? A missile disguised beneath the radar? Or something even more advanced, built in silence, tested in secret, waiting for the right moment to strike? That night, the balance of fear shifted. For the first time in this war, Russia's own heartland trembled. And it wouldn't be the last time. If you want stories the headlines reject, subscribe and stay with us. Every story we tell is real. Every act of sacrifice remembered. The strike happened far from the front lines, in the Bryansk region, a quiet part of western Russia, known more for its forests than for fighting. It sits about 200 miles from the Ukrainian border, deep enough that most people there never believed the war would touch them. That night, everything changed. The target was a fuel and ammunition depot, the kind that keeps tanks rolling and artillery firing. Rows of oil tanks, crates of shells, diesel trucks, and rail lines connecting it all to the front. When the explosions hit, they came in waves. First one, then two, then an entire line of fire racing through the depot, like falling dominoes. Locals woke up thinking the world was ending. Phones started recording, shaking hands, blurred images, and by sunrise the clips flooded online. You could see the smoke rising for miles. Some said it looked like the sky itself was burning. Russian officials at first called it an accident. But the pattern was too clear, too precise. The hits came right where the ammunition was stored. No random explosion does that. By noon, Ukrainian analysts hinted what the world already suspected. It wasn't an accident. It was a strike, planned, timed, and executed with quiet precision. Some said drones flew low across the border, skimming the treetops, too small for radar to catch. Others believed long-range missiles had done the job. The truth was hard to confirm, but one thing was clear. Ukraine had just reached into Russia itself. For the first time, the war had crossed the border in a way that couldn't be denied. And the shock wasn't only in the flames, it was in what it meant. If Ukraine could strike here, what else could it reach? How far could this war now travel? That question echoed through every briefing room in Moscow and every defense post in Kiev. This wasn't just another headline. It was a warning that the map of this war had changed overnight. The border was no longer a line of safety. It was just a suggestion. We're just getting started. In the next few minutes, we'll look at how Ukraine planned this strike and why it caught Russia off guard. If you want to stay with the real stories, hit subscribe and keep watching. No, army crosses a border without a message. And this strike, deep inside Russia, carried one loud and clear. Ukraine had just shown that its reach was longer than anyone thought. The question was, how? The truth is, these weapons weren't flown in from America or Europe. They were built right there in Ukraine, in hidden workshops and quiet garages. Men who once fixed tractors or built farm machines were now engineers of war. They used spare parts, old motors, and bits of foreign tech smuggled in through back routes. Each drone had a story. Each one was made by hand. One Ukrainian technician, a man in his 40s, said it best. He told a reporter, "Every time we launch one, we know it might not come back. But if it reaches the target, it means our people live another day." That's what this was about, survival. Not glory, not revenge, just survival. The route to Bryansk wasn't simple. To get there, these drones had to fly low, sometimes just a few meters above the ground, weaving through valleys and forests, slipping past radar. They didn't fly straight. They curved around air defense zones, used terrain as cover, and followed the dark side of the moon to stay unseen. It took hours of planning. Every kilometer had to be mapped, every weather pattern studied. A single gust of wind could throw the drone off course and lose the mission. But that night, everything worked. The drones found their target, hit it, and vanished into the smoke. No radar warning, no interception, just silence until the explosions began. It wasn't luck. It was precision, timing, and courage. The kind of courage that doesn't make the news, the kind that lives in the quiet hands of the men and women who build the tools that keep their country alive. In this war, technology has changed, but the heart behind it hasn't. It's still people, ordinary people, shaping the weapons that shape history. Stay with us, because what came after this strike sent another shock across both armies. In a moment, we'll look at Russia's reaction and how the balance of fear began to shift. If you want stories the headlines forget, subscribe now, and don't miss what happens next. That night, the sky over Kursk was lit by something more than flames. It was lit by intent. The strike wasn't random. It was a message written in fire sent straight across the border. This was never just about destroying a depot. Ukraine knew exactly what it was doing, not just militarily, but psychologically. Every strike inside Russia breaks the illusion of safety that Moscow has tried to build around its people. One Western analyst put it simply, it forces Moscow to spread its defenses thinner. The more Ukraine strikes deep inside Russia, the more the Kremlin has to stretch, protecting oil fields, refineries, power grids, even air bases once thought untouchable. But to Ukrainians, this wasn't vengeance. It was justice, rough, costly justice born from years of bombed apartment blocks and blackout nights. They called it balance, a way of reminding Moscow that the fire can burn both ways. But even as the smoke rose, both sides understood this war is no longer fought just on the front lines. It's fought in the minds of those watching from afar. Every explosion leaves two kinds of scars, one on the ground, the other inside those who see it. Somewhere in Russia that night, a mother stayed awake until sunrise, listening for news of her son. Somewhere in Ukraine, another mother did the same. The same fear, the same silence, different borders. Stay with us, because what happened after the attack changed everything. Russia's response revealed a side of this war the world rarely sees. At first, Moscow said nothing. The sky over Kursk still burned, but on Russian state TV there was silence. No breaking news, no headlines, just routine stories, as if nothing had happened. But silence has a short life in the age of phones and telegram. Within minutes, videos flooded Russian social media, people filming the glow from their windows, asking what's burning. The official version came hours later. A fire at an industrial facility. That single phrase, a fire, became the government's shield. But even that couldn't hide what satellites had already seen: multiple strikes, high precision, and secondary explosions that burned for hours. Then came the blame. The Ministry of Defense called it a terrorist drone attack by the Kiev regime. It was familiar language, but this time the tone was different. Tense, defensive. The kind of tone a nation uses when it's been struck somewhere it thought untouchable. Analysts quickly saw the deeper impact. Ukraine's reach had changed the map and the rhythm of this war. Russia now had to guard deeper territory, refineries, fuel depots, even transport routes once considered safe. Every system pulled home meant one less guarding the front. Every diverted radar meant another gap in the defense line near Avdiivka or the fields around Roboti. For Ukraine, the message was clear: the deeper the reach, the more Moscow would have to look inward. For Russia, it was a dilemma. Strike harder or spread thin? No. But the fire at Kursk wasn't the only flame burning that week. Farther south, in Bryansk, another strike lit the night sky. And this one carried an even sharper message. In the old wars, front lines were drawn with trenches and barbed wire. You could look at a map and know where the danger was. But not anymore. Tonight, a drone can lift off from a field near Poltava, and hours later, a refinery near Moscow burns. There are no more safe zones, only reach. This is the new face of war. Small, cheap machines flying hundreds of kilometers, guided not by generals and bunkers, but by young men and women with calloused hands and tired eyes. They're not soldiers in the traditional sense. Some were students, engineers, even gamers. Now they watch satellite feeds, wind patterns, and weather maps, not for adventure, but for survival. One Ukrainian operator told a reporter, "When the screen goes black, I know it's hit. There's no cheer, no high five, just a quiet exhale. Another mission logged. Another night gone." On the other side, Russia answers with missiles, heavier, faster, and brutal. Apartment blocks, power grids, rail lines. Each side strikes deeper. Trying to prove reach means control. But what makes this war different is not just the range, it's the rhythm. One day it's artillery in Bakhmut, the next a drone in Tula, then a blackout in Kharkiv. No frontline, no pattern, just a constant echo. Strike, response, silent. Distance used to mean safety. Families once believed that living hundreds of miles from the front would keep them out of reach. Now, the war arrives through the sky, silent, unseen, and precise. If this story helps you see the war beyond the headlines, tap like. It helps us reach more people who care about the truth behind the front lines. When military maps light up with red and blue zones, they don't show the faces of those still inside them. But they're there. Mothers, children, old men who refuse to leave their homes. In a small Russian town near Bryansk, people woke up to the sound of explosions that shook their windows. One woman told a local station, "It felt like the earth cracked open." For her, this war was supposed to be far away, something seen only on television. But that night, it came to her doorstep. Across the border, in Ukraine, families huddled around small radios, listening, hoping. Some cheered when they heard about the strike deep inside Russia. Others just went silent. For soldiers' wives in Mykolaiv and Dnipro, victory feels like a double-edged sword. One woman said, quietly, "If they can reach Russia, Russia can reach us." The war no longer has a clear front. The battlefield is the sky above every home. Whether in Russia or Ukraine, the sound of engines at night now means fear. Firefighters dig through rubble in Kursk. In Kharkiv, volunteers patch holes in roofs. Two countries, both haunted by the same noise. Technology keeps evolving, faster drones, longer range, sharper eyes in the sky. But every improvement means someone, somewhere, is closer to loss. A Ukrainian technician once said, "We don't build drones to destroy, we build them to survive." And in those few words lies the truth of this war. Every explosion has two sides, one of defense, one of despair. Wars aren't just fought with bullets anymore, they're fought with signals, timing, and messages. Every strike now carries meaning. And this one spoke volumes. The attack deep inside Russia wasn't just an explosion, it was a message sent straight to Moscow. You are not untouchable. For Ukraine, this was about more than destruction. It was about forcing Russia to look inward, to guard its own land, to stretch its defenses thin, to spend resources protecting cities instead of pushing forward on the front. In Kyiv, analysts called it psychological warfare. Not just to damage, but to unsettle, to make the Russian people ask questions their leaders don't want them asking. And for Russia, the response came fast. More air defense units moved north. Radar stations reactivated. The Kremlin blamed terrorist drones, and state television called it a provocation. But off-camera, the message was clear. They didn't expect this. Outside the war zone the world watched, NATO's command centers tracked the strike in real time. Western analysts studied satellite images, and online, millions of ordinary people debated what it meant. Some called it bravery, others called it escalation. But behind the politics and headlines, this strike revealed something deeper. Ukraine is learning, adapting, and reaching farther than anyone thought possible 2 years ago. Oh, it's not about one explosion. It's about what comes next. For Russia, the question now is, how many more can they stop? For Ukraine, how many more can they launch? And for the rest of the world, how long before this war crosses another line no one expected? There was a time when war had limits, where a line on a map decided who fought and who slept in peace. But this war changed that. Today, a battle might start in the skies over Kharkiv and end in the servers of Moscow. A drone doesn't need a passport. A virus doesn't stop at checkpoints. The front has gone silent, invisible, spread across land, air, and code. Every month brings a new kind of weapon. Hackers plant false messages in enemy systems. Drones drop explosives through open windows. Trains derail from sabotage. Even cell towers become targets because in this war, information is as deadly as artillery. One Ukrainian cyber officer put it simply, "Our weapon is not just steel, it's truth." Russia, too, has adapted. Its hackers hit power grids. Its spies track social media to predict strikes. Both sides chase shadows, trying to see who will blink first. And yet, in all this chaos, one truth remains. No border fence can stop a signal or a drone that flies under the radar. This is the war no one can fully see, where every click, every launch, every leak changes the fight. It's a war that moves faster than history can record it, leaving both nations and the world trying to keep up. In our next story, we'll go deeper inside Ukraine's secret drone fleet and the people building the weapons of tomorrow. Don't miss it. Subscribe. Stay with us, because every new weapon tells a human story behind it. Every fire leaves an ember, and embers can start new wars. What began as a fight for territory has now become something larger, a test of what the future of warfare looks like. There are no safe distances anymore. Missiles fly hundreds of miles. Drones cross borders in minutes. The front line is now everywhere, from the trenches of Donetsk to the servers inside government buildings. Both sides know it. The next strike may not come from the sky, but from a keyboard. And in that silence between attack and response, you can almost hear the hum of the new battlefield, invisible, relentless, and always moving. But beyond the technology, beyond the numbers and reports, there are people. The engineers who spend sleepless nights modifying old drones with new wings. The medics who run into burning buildings to pull out the wounded. And the mothers who wake up to the sound of sirens and pray their children will live through our dawn. History won't remember the coordinates. It won't remember the model numbers of the drones or the make of the missiles. But it will remember the will of those who refuse to be silenced. The quiet defiance of soldiers who fought with little and endured with very thing. The war between Russia and Ukraine is no longer just a story about nations. It's a story about what humanity becomes when war leaves no borders and peace feels like a memory. And as the world watches, one question remains. When the embers cool, what rises from they? Ashes? Pause. Because every hero, every strike, every loss shapes the war. LD we live in. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, subscribe, like, and share. Because history is written not just by those who fight, but by those who remember.